What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the Helldivers 2 situation and it being fixed. And I really want to spin this video into, is this a lesson that we can learn from? Is this something that basically continues going forward? But let's recap really quickly, I guess, what happened. It's very simple. PlayStation issued a tweet late Sunday night and simply said they're not doing it. They're reversing their decision. They say they're still basically learning how to do this PC thing, how to treat PC players, and that's the end of it. And what you've seen actually since is quite hilarious. I actually saw right away a few people tweeting like, hey, this is something that's going to negatively affect the PC player base for PlayStation for years. They're not going to forget this. They're going to do this. They're going to do that within like a couple hours. And if you look at it right now, the positive reviews for this thing have swung up unbelievably. So it just kind of makes those people look really, really silly. Honestly, I really don't feel like this is going to have a lot of repercussions at all. There will be some that remember this. I think it's something that we all need to remember, okay? But in terms of like, is this going to give people buyer's remorse or things like that going forward? I really don't know, because immediately after they did the decision, it truly feels like this. The people that gave it once really good scores gave it bad scores to reverse the decision, and now they're just literally logging in and giving it a good score again. So it's like the scores don't even matter at a certain point. Honestly, that, at least to me, that's what it seems like. So number one, and to really kind of recap or finish recapping this arc, I'm glad. I mean, I'm really, really glad this was reversed. I do think it would have negatively affected it. One thing that was kind of weird over the weekend is, obviously you have the 100 and whatever it was, 77, countries that were banned, and you had all their flags, and it looked absolutely terrible, right? You had all that, and you had these negative reviews that really, literally just tanked the score of Helldivers 2, and people were going after Helldivers 1, but at the same time, the player base really didn't seem like it was faltering on at least Steam, right, where you could see like the player base numbers. It didn't seem like it was dropping at all. So I think it would have eventually. Obviously, it didn't the first weekend. And hey, maybe you can make an argument that it was all just smoke and people were just doing reviews and they weren't actually doing anything with like playing it or not playing it. At the same time, I do think we saw enough evidence that people were requesting refunds with hundreds of hours, and I would imagine it was a good amount of people doing it. Otherwise, Sony probably wouldn't have done this. That's something you got to remember, and that really leads us to the next part of this video. If it wasn't that bad, I don't think Sony would have reversed it, right? So even like countering what I just said, playing devil's advocate on myself, I don't think it was just the scores. I think it was Sony probably saw something, or Arrowhead, with them constantly talking. We saw so many tweets over the weekend of them being in constant communication. They saw the backlash, whether they saw tweets or they saw YouTube videos or they saw the reviews or they saw maybe just a lot of refunds. They saw something clearly to reverse the decision. I don't think they would have made this decision if it was just like one or two, small little tweets complaining about it, right? So clearly it was something to push Sony over the edge to reverse it. So again, really great that they did that. And now, is this something that we can, again, is this something you take and you learn from? Is this something that can continue? Well, here's the thing. I don't think it's like as easy to say as, oh yeah, we just keep doing this and things will keep happening. The tough thing is, because like one thing that I was thinking, right, is say when a game makes like the live service decision, right, and there is like a massive, uproar online. Well, clearly, number one, it's not enough of an uproar. And number two, the thing that you can't necessarily just drag over as like a lesson learned is if you complain online about it, something will happen. Again, number one, I think there was more to it than just complaining online. And number two, I really think it has to do with what was actually the bad thing that people were complaining about. In this case, it was literally linking an account to PlayStation Network. And that is as easy as turning it off or turning it on, considering it was never on in the first place, or it was for like 2 hours or whatever ended up happening in the beginning, right? But the fact is, it's something relatively simple in the grand scheme of things. When I bring up the live service thing, the tough thing is, we did prove as a community, or actually, I'll be honest, I didn't leave a review, so I guess I can't say anything. I made one video on it. People proved as a community that if they are loud enough, if they, I guess, review bomb a game enough and potentially do refunds or just flat out quit a game, whatever people took, whatever measures people took to send a message for Helldivers 2, clearly that message worked. But is it so easy or as easy to do that with everything else? in a world, I would like to see people unite for other things. And I guess that's kind of what I'm, hinting at when a company makes like terrible decisions, like say down the road, decisions we don't even know about yet. Can we as a community come together to basically pull off a Helldivers 2 situation? I hope so, and I think you just kind of proved to yourselves that you can do it. But at the same time, like I said, for that, it was kind of a simple thing. You can't revolt necessarily against, say, like a live service game, just using that one example, right? It's very hard to do that because you're not going to get them to cancel a game. And you can't really get them to rescope that game because if the game is built for live service, complaining and saying, hey, I just don't want it, it's not going to make them, go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we'll just take the live service parts out. You'd have to redo the game. Now, the thing you can do in that case, as we actually have seen with probably both Skull and Bones and Suicide Squad, is people just don't buy them, right? People just flat out don't support them in the first place. There's not necessarily review bombing. There's not complaints online. I mean, there are, but there's not like an overwhelming amount, right? But people just don't support it. So, again, I mean, there's different ways of handling different situations for sure, but I just kind of wanted to throw it out there where I do hope, and I think it gives me kind of confidence going forward where it's like, hey, if people really want something, I feel like, maybe they can do it. But at the same time, this was, and I don't want to I don't want to throw around words very lightly, but I will say I felt like this was an easier fight. This was something that was kind of unnecessary. This was something that's already pretty divisive in the PC community. Also, it's on PC, and I don't know if that makes a difference. Like, maybe they just don't take console players as seriously as PC players, but like if PC players revolt, it seems to have a bigger impact. And I mean, that's subjective. I don't know that for sure, and that's just my own measure of things, but it sure seems like PC players kind of hold more power over, which, you know what? And I've seen a lot of tweets almost mocking that. I don't actually think that's something that you should mock at all. I've seen tweets saying like, oh, all the whining and complaining PC players did. Hey, at the end of the day, they literally got what they want, and they got like a positive outcome. So, maybe some of the practice, like if there were threats sent towards these people, like that's not okay. And I hope that's not the reason why things were changed. I mean, you shouldn't bow down to threats, right? And I'm sure that did happen, and that, again, that's not okay. But I think the PC players literally united to send a message saying, no way, like we're not going to tolerate this. We normally don't tolerate things like this, so we're just not going to do it. And that is like a special kind of strength that maybe console players don't have. But I don't think that's something to be mocked. I don't think that's something to laugh at. You might not like the practice. Say you're like a kind of a PlayStation diehard, right? Like, you might not like the things that Helldivers 2 fans on PC did. But at the end of the day, they got the outcome. You know what I mean? And that is what I think you can kind of take moving forward, where it's like, let's not mock PC players for like whining and complaining. Is it whining and complaining? I guess it is, right? But it's also action. Like, they are complaining online, they're whining online, they're changing review scores, but that's an act. Like, they're doing an actual act for an outcome. And guess what? That outcome is the right move and the right decision, and that outcome actually happened. So, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I respect everybody's opinion. Like, if you want to have an opinion on the PC players and call them whatever, I personally, I guess, don't care. But I just think that's not really something that you should take moving forward. It should kind of be, hey, I guess if we all come together, and again, it's as simple as maybe leaving bad review scores, and I mean, that's the tough thing, right? Like, again, do you just review bomb games from now on? Like, is that the lesson we learn? I don't think so. Because again, I really think Sony wouldn't have made this decision if it was simply just review bombing. Yet again, it was like one of the weirdest acts of review bombing you've ever seen in your life, right? Like how quickly it turned from overwhelmingly positive to like literally polar opposite in probably like a day and a half. That's actually insane. So, like, I don't know if review bombing always works, and I don't know if that's like the right thing going forward, but at the same time, it was kind of like unbelievable what people were able to do to Helldivers 2 review scores. But I really think it was more than that, probably from like the back end that Sony saw that kind of scared them. But regardless, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.